Welcome to the Ultimate Hockey Show, your favorite Monday ritual. We're hoping because you tune us in, we do have some loyal viewers. Welcome to the Ultimate Hockey Show, back in its rightful spot on Monday after being on Tuesday last week. To yours truly went to the Jets game. Rick, you went yesterday. I think that's where we're going to have most of the consternation on this show because the Winnipeg Jets had yet another perfect week, but it wasn't a perfect game yesterday by any means. Uh, more ways
I
than
agree.
one. Huh?
I said, I agree.
Yep. Good evening, Rhett. I'm gonna come at it from a couple of angles. You have a couple angles. You have a beef with the latest NHL power ranking that I can't say I disagree. We will discuss that as the next hour goes along. We'll also discuss Connor McDavid missing the next 3 weeks. Um, that'll be about a week ago now, so about 2 more weeks. We'll talk about that as well. I want to talk about the state of, well, you kind of know it. National Hockey League officiating. It kind of ties into yesterday. I know I told you one thing, Rich, and then I came home and I watched the replay up close, and my mind has changed. We'll get to that in just a minute. How are you this evening?
Good. Very good. How about you, Michael?
Good. I'm actually very happy with our Winnipeg Jets. I'm very happy with our Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Not so happy we have to play the Saskatchewan Roughriders, but it is what it is. Um, the right teams won, I think, on the weekend in the CFL. The Winnipeg Jets continue to win. Always good after that loss against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's work this week forward, sort of backwards, because I
Okay.
think the first game is going to take a lot more of our consternation than the other two. Although every game kind of has its own personality, but I think we're going to be talking about yesterday's game, the longest, which is okay. I also want to talk about where the Winnipeg Jets sit relative to the National Hockey League, how that affects power rankings, what are power rankings, what are metrics. Nobody seems to know. Um, Rob saying he got the week right with the Jets going a perfect 3-0. I think I said 2-0-1 on the show last week. I can't quite remember. Nonetheless, the Jets are 11-1 on the season. So, sorry, I'm having an audio issue here, but I think it's okay now. Um, just give me a flat rate. 11-1 to 12 games. You saw this coming, right?
Oh yeah, sure. Sure we did. Yep.
The other opinion
If
is of the
anybody
12 games, 6 of the games have had 6 or more goals from the Winnipeg Jets, including every game this week that had
actually
6
that's
goals.
seven. Actually seven as of yesterday. It was six up
Okay,
until yesterday.
so
Now it's
7. I undersold them a little bit. Um, Winnipeg Jets, just to recap, first in goals 4, first on the power play, first in goal differential, first in goals allowed, first in wins, fewest losses, you name it. Every statistical category should see the Winnipeg Jets at number 1. Let's talk about yesterday's game against Tampa. You were in the building. I was watching it at an establishment in Winnipeg, and I came home to rewatch certain parts that you can't necessarily catch because you're not allowed to rewind.
Mhm.
Um, because you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to. So you're not allowed to ask them to rewind things in an establishment. That's the way it goes.
Yep.
So I'm able to go frame by frame when I get home. Where do you want to start with unpacking this? Is it the first goal, the goalie interference that was not goalie interference according to the National Hockey League, and everybody in the building said it was goalie interference, but maybe the 3 people that it mattered the most in making the decision, or maybe one particular person in Toronto that made that decision, uh, turning out because of that, the Jets taking a penalty, Tampa scoring on a power play, and Jets are down 2-0 before the game is like 8 minutes old. Red, have you changed your mind
Yep.
or have you cooled down on that goalie interference? I ask you now, why is that not goalie interference? Enlighten me.
It's a very good question. Like my understanding of the rule is, unless somebody, so one of our listeners can clarify it is, or explain it further, maybe there's something I'm missing, is that if a guy goes into a goalie and hits him on his own without any shoving from somebody else, he skates into the goalie, he can get a penalty for interference because he's just skating right into the goalie, and not only that, get a penalty, and if somebody scores the goal as a result of it, the goal gets reversed, and the guy will get a penalty because he purposely interfered with the goalie. That doesn't happen a lot. What's more common is where a guy, because a defenseman is riding you into the or out of the play, right? So you're going hard to the net. The defenseman's riding you. He gives you a push. He's trying to push you out of the way of the goalie, but inadvertently he pushes you into the goalie, which is what happened on Sunday from what I could see live. And then I saw it later from a number of different camera angles afterwards on highlights, and it was the same way. So I believe it was Dylan DeMello ran Morgan Geekie. Like, is that who it was? It's
Connor Geekie, his younger brother.
His older brother. Okay. Connor Geekie into Hellebuck. Now, I know that if as a result of that, the goal gets scored immediately, right at that moment, like you run him into the goalie and then the goal, boom, it's scored at the same time that you're running the guy into your own goalie, it's a goal because it's not your fault, I guess, for lack of a better word, that that you ran to the goalie and you had no choice.
You have no choice.
You have no choice, exactly. But my understanding is that if you with the play and the physicality and you're getting pushed into the crease there or whatever it is, and then the play continues, you hit the goalie has to be able to have space in the crease to be able to move and adjust to the next shot or the next play that develops. And the longer the time is that the play is developing before another shot is taken, and you as being the opposing player that got run into the goalie, you don't do everything you can to get out of the goalie's way, out of the crease, or to at least give him the ability to make the next save. If you're interfering with that aspect of the play, it's goaltender interference. And that's very clear. So if you look at the replay, he gets run into Hellebuck, but the puck hit the crossbar and it bounced out. It was knocking all around. The play's going on 1001, 1002, 1003. There's at least 2-3 seconds. And then somebody comes in and fires the shot in on a wide open net. Well, Hellebuck couldn't get up again because Geekie is still on top of him, and Geekie is not being held by DeMello. DeMello's not pushing him, not holding him, not interfering with him. Geekie could have gotten up or moved out of the way, moved out of the crease to give Hellebuck the chance to get up and make the play. And he didn't do that. So in my opinion, I agree. If the goal had been scored immediately with that play, it would have been a good goal. But the fact that it was a few seconds later and Hellebuck did not have the chance to get up and to reposition himself and make a play on the next shot, that's on the Lightning player, and it should have been a no goal. But I think you and I were talking, and I think it's so close, right? Like the ref has to make a call at his discretion as to how much time has elapsed. Has the player had sufficient time to move out of the way of the goalie? All these things. And then, and I think you said too, it was a very good point, is they rule it a goal, which means there has to be it has to be so conclusive and so obvious that it's not a goal because they did not allow Hellebuck to get back into position that you could overturn the goal. And I think that's where it is. If it had been 5-6 seconds, like it's really obvious, the play goes into the corner, right? The puck goes away, comes around, circles around the point, and then a defenseman shoots it 5 seconds later, and there's Connor Geekie. He's still in the crease and he's still on top of Hellebuck. It's obvious. But this one, it was so quick, boom, boom, that 2 seconds, whatever, you think, oh, that's such a long time. It's not that long. It's very quick. And maybe he didn't have time to move out of the way. DeMello ran him into Hellebuck, and that's the way it is. I didn't hear because the refs won't make commentary. I don't know if Adam Lowry said something after the game or Connor Hellebuck did, getting an explanation from the ref, but that would be my understanding of why they did not overturn it. So
Well, and again, Rich, it's interesting because you talked about the whole concept of goalie interference versus not goalie interference versus
Yeah.
incidental contact. Incidental contact is when the puck is loose. Connor Hellebuyck was explaining this today. Uh, Incidental contact is when the puck is loose and you're going after a loose puck and you happen to strike the player's glove.
Yeah.
In the process of attempting to try to get the puck, that is incidental contact. That is why I just can rule it incidental contact. Like, to me, in the moment, I thought Morrissey pushed him into the crease, but then again, when I looked the second time, it's like Connor Hellebuyck said, it's not a black and white sort of thing. When you're looking at, you know, it's it needs to be more black and white. We need to get to the point of where we were in the late 90s and in the 2000s, where the player enters the crease, the puck enters the crease. We might have to get to a point where the play is blown dead. Now, that is minutia number one, trying to play a net front battle. But it used to be that when your foot entered the crease, whistle, everything stops, play goes on. Now there seems to be this big gray area about goalie interference. And to be honest, I don't know goalie interference, right from left anymore.
Yeah.
It seems so subjective. Now, officials have to make a snap decision. It's not uncommon. That's not uncommon, but I hate to say this because it sounds like such a simple thing, but yet so difficult, and that is why I don't know if they're scared to overrule the call on the ice based on what the official ends up calling, but it's almost like they said, yeah, you made the call. It's 50-50. We're leaving it the way you called it.
Yep. Yep. It's great. And like there's the comments here from some of the listeners or some of the viewers.
Yep.
Yeah, there's lots of gray. There's gray on every penalty because every penalty, is that a hooking penalty? Well, in the first period is. In the third period of a playoff game with 5 minutes left, it's not hooking. So it's all interpretive. It's all subjective according to the refs. But I agree with you. I think what they do is they don't want to. They're trying to have more goals, not like that old rule where you had a foot in the crease and a guy like when the Stars won against the Sabres for the Stanley Cup on a game-winning goal, and Brett Hull had
Brett Hull would have something to say about that.
Yeah, Brett Hull had half an inch of his skate blade in the blue ice. And it used to be during the regular season, it was all goal scored, tuck, it ended. And then on that game, the final game, they did not call it the way they called it all year. And because of that, they changed it, said, that's such ticky-tack and whatever. If it has nothing to do with the play, we're going to let it go. So I think, long story short, I think the league is trying to err on the side of not turning away goals. Like, they don't want to take goals off the screen. They want to see lots of goals scored because that's what fans want, right? So it's like the offside rule. They made it more simplistic in order to figure it out. It doesn't have to be on the ice.
Because if it stays in the air and it crosses the blue line, but the puck has, yeah.
And same thing with this. And I think, to your point, I think it was called a goal. The guy got run into the goalie. Now you could interpret maybe these two refs, they didn't think it was a big deal. They go to Toronto, and Toronto says, yeah, it's a second and a half, 2 seconds. We didn't allow him enough time to get out of the crease and off the goalie, so it's a good goal. Who knows? You could even call Toronto. That same play could happen a week from now. They could go to Toronto, and whoever's watching and doing the calls at the camera at NHL head office, they might go the other way and say, yeah, that's long enough. He should have gotten away. and they reversed the goal. So even the guys in Toronto with some of these rules,
Yeah.
it's interpretive, it's gray, they got to make a judgment call. So
We
I don't
we
know.
we call it subjective.
Yeah, it is what
It's
it is. That one doesn't bother me as much. What bothered me more on Sunday was, and they set up and they chatted about it after the game on CGOB
yeah.
and a few people, and even online, there was some talk on social media. The game wasn't
Consternation,
ref
you
well.
will.
What's that?
Consternation.
God say, well, the game wasn't refed well. The refs, like they almost it's like the guys came out there and they said, we don't want to blow our whistle for any reason. Like it's exhausting. Like skating up and down the ice is hard, and then having to take your air. Oh, you're tired from the skating. You're a ref. Now you have to blow the whistle. That's tiring too. Then you have to lift your arm up to call a penalty. That's tiring. It's hard to lift your arm up in the air. I don't know. The guy didn't have his Wheaties in the morning. I don't know, but it seemed like they did not want to call penalties. There was a incident, what period? That was either in the first or third, because I know that's when the Jets were in the offensive zone for me and my seats going left. I think it was early in the third period. The Jets got tripped once. Then the Lightning guy went away with the puck. Then a Jet guy stole the puck off that guy. He turns, he gets tripped. No call. Then the Lightning guy gets away with it again. Then the third guy, Gabe Vilardi, I think, or that second one, Gabe Vilardi got tripped, but he got back up again, spun around, then got tripped a third time within like 30 seconds, and then they called that finally. It's like, it's the exact same play that happens 3 times in the offensive zone, and it's like, and I think what happened is that the players got frustrated because stuff is not getting called like it normally is. It's kind of inconsistent, and that's why I think the players got a little bit edgy. There was a lot of edginess in that game, a lot of stuff after the whistle, guys trying to take advantage of or trying to bring their own justice on the ice because things weren't getting called. Same thing with that elbow shot to the head from Kucherov on
Oh,
like
oh my
4 minutes
goodness.
left. I mean, from where we could see, I mean, it's live. It just looked like he came
No,
from.
this was an elbow to the head. There's no question.
Yeah. And then what was interesting was I didn't realize this because I didn't think, okay, he's not that hurt, because he skated off on his own. He seemed to be fine. But then I found out later on social media and then listening on the radio that the spotters, I guess they have NHL spotters or team spotters, they just said, listen, he got hit in the head.
Spotters.
Yeah, there's 4 minutes left in the game. And then he was fine, but they just kept him out of the game as a precaution, which is fine. I totally get it. But again, it's a shot to the head. Like, come on, you guys. And then a guy on the radio, I don't know if it was Kelly Moore, is being so gracious. He says, well, maybe they didn't see it. There's 2 guys that are refs on the ice. And do you know who had the puck when he got elbowed in the back of the head? Connor. So what are they looking at? Are they looking up in the crowd at some pretty girl? Or is there a sign that says, hey, refs, we love you? And a kid is holding up a sign, refs, you're number 1. And a guy's thinking, wow, I am number 1. I'm pretty good. Like, what is he looking at? There's only one play going on. The game. Watch the game. And how 2 guys could miss that. I mean,
but
everyone.
Even in that case, Matt, I think the linesman should have the ability to step in and say, hey, that's a hit to the head penalty.
But I'm not even on the ice. I am like,
no, I know,
5 times as far. I would say I'm probably 3 or 4 times as far away from it as the ref is on the ice. And there's a ref usually down low behind the net and then one up high at center ice. So there's 2 guys there from each angle. And you're telling me neither one watching the play where the puck is, that you don't see this guy running from behind a guy in the back of the head? Come on. You know what it is? It's this weird thing where, it's not good to call a penalty against the team that's coming from behind because we want to make the game more compelling. And I mean, literally the team that's behind by a goal or 2 would have to literally draw blood on the ice for us to call something. I mean, that's almost what it seems like because it's so obvious. I mean, I'm not even aware. If that was a Jet guy doing that to a Lightning guy, I would have said it should be a penalty. It's a hit to the head. They're trying to eliminate that. So why don't they call it? I don't know. But I heard that Kucherov, he might even get a summons to NHL discipline. I don't know that he has.
Maybe a fine. I don't think there's a suspension coming. Maybe.
Well, but at least a chat. maybe not a in-person meeting, maybe a phone call with what's his name there,
George Peros.
George Peros. There you go. So, but anyway, that part of the game wasn't great. It was a little bit. Well, I guess you could say it is great because it's like the playoffs. There was more physical contact, more rough stuff, more after we were whistle shenanigans in that game than there's been in the previous 11 that the Jets have played, which is amazing. But anyway,
we just keep waiting for the Winnipeg Jets to hit these new heights, and they seem to be doing it with each passing game. Progressing to another level.
Yep.
What do you think this says about the Winnipeg Jets? Falling behind 2-0. Yeah, they're mad. Yeah, they're upset, but they just went back to work and, quite frankly, dominated from that point on.
Yeah. Actually, the score really flattered the Tampa Bay because it was 5-4.
I thought it did too.
Yeah, because it was 5-4 late, and then they scored a couple of empty netters. But there was that one goal by Kucherov who just kind of did that poke check on Nemestikov in front of the net. I mean, come on. Like, if you get the puck, you got to get it out of the front of the net. Just rifle it into the corner. And then there's Hellebuck. He looks like he's in the backyard in front of the barbecue making burgers. Like, he's standing up, leaning against. Why isn't he down, ready? Like, the puck is in front of the net. Why is he not, even if your guy has it, get down in a butterfly, put your stick on the ice. Like, he's kind of like standing up and he's got his hand on the bar and he's like this. Oh, I wonder if the burger's got to be flipped yet. Like, it's like, what is this? It's the third period. You're up by 2 goals. Like, come on, wake up. Or you're up by a goal, whatever. I think that made it 4-4. I'm just saying. And then the other one was a really cheap goal too. Was there was that goal was cheap, and then I guess the interference goal too. That one was cheap. But so really, that I agree with you. The score flattered the Lightning because the Jets really outplayed them in a lot of ways. But
I want to ask you about that Jets power play. Alex Iafallo had a power play goal yesterday. The first unit couldn't do anything in the power play before. Couldn't do anything in the first minute 20 of the next one. This Iafallo line comes out and they start to kind of lull the opposition to sleep. Iafallo finds the soft spot, ends up putting it in the net. What do you make of this seemingly even distribution between first line and second line as far as power play goals go?
Well, it's good. I think it's great, because most teams, I would imagine, have a very strong first unit, and then a second unit is kind of just, we'll throw out whoever's left over to work maybe the last 20 or 30 seconds. But you know what I like about the Jets power play units, and maybe you can sort of add your 3 cents or 2 cents on it, is the first unit is they're very creative. They have all creative guys. They can move the puck well. They can slide around. They can all shoot. They're kind of all moving around and cycling. They're very creative. They all see the ice well. They can all pass well. So it's a very exciting power play to watch. The second unit is actually very, like, it's not the same. It's a very classic power play unit where they try to get the puck down low, try to win the puck, and then feed it to the point, and then huge shots from Pionk, and then trying to get a rebound, a deflection or whatever. So it just, even the way they operate, they're not the same skill set on the second unit as the first unit. They don't play it quite the same, or at least the way they look is not the same, but yet they're both effective in their own way, which is really that shows you how amazing the Jets are. I mean, that second unit with who's in there, that would be Perfetti, Nemestikov, Niederreiter, Iafallo, and Pionk, probably. I think that's right. I think it's those 5. But yeah.
What do you make? I think it's honestly 2 power play units that play completely different.
Yeah.
You get the zipping and the zagging with the first unit where it's passing and then steady shooting. And the second unit kind of allows you to sleep. They're proficient at what they do, but and then they put the puck in the net behind you when you're not paying attention. I think it's completely different for all teams to handle one unit to the nuts, and it captured opponents completely off guard.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I agree. I think I mean, the Jets are very fortunate right now. I think they're one of the few teams that is still playing with every guy from their opening night
Oh,
roster.
yep.
Or, I mean, except for maybe, well, Logan Stanley wasn't in the opening night roster, but he was injured. Now he is. So I'm saying, but the Jets haven't lost anybody since the beginning of the season. They have lost nobody out of their lineup to injury. And I think they might be one of the only teams in the whole league. Well, that's a huge factor. I mean, the season is long and you can have it, but can you imagine if the Jets lose Scheifele and Morrissey? That's like Avalanche losing McKinnon and Makar, right? It's like um, the Lightning losing Kucherov and Hedman, right? Like it's a huge impact losing key offensive players that help to drive your offense and score goals. I mean, you lose those guys, and some teams have like just a ton of injuries, and it's been very. Look at the Oilers. I mean, losing the best player in the world in Connor McDavid, and yet they won last night, right? So,
Yep. Yeah, they beat a very talented Calgary Flames team, which
yep,
is
yep. So,
pretty pesky. Let's talk about the other games quickly this week. They went into it was Saint. Was it no? Help me out
Detroit.
with that. I didn't have the schedule in front of me.
We went to Detroit.
Oh yeah, Detroit, Columbus. Wait.
Correct.
I just everybody was wondering how they'd respond after that Toronto loss. They wind up taking a 3-0 lead in Detroit, where Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Gabriel Velarde have quite a game.
Yeah.
What impressed you about that? Was it the ability to come back and score 3 in the first period and put their opposition on their back foot after everybody was kind of waiting to see how they would respond to their first
Yeah.
loss?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Detroit. It's a funny team. They got some good players. And Larkin, you expect to just like you're waiting for him to be that sort of a superstar player. Maybe he's just not. Maybe he's just a really good player that needs a lot of really good players around him to be that good. He's not in that way the same type of a driver as, let's say, a McKinnon or a McDavid are, but they have some good players on that team. They have some really good defensemen. I think for Detroit, what I noticed is their net minding was not very good. Whoever that guy was that was playing in goal, I mean, not that the Jets did not deserve to win, but out of those 6 goals, I mean, some of those goals, maybe another goaltender is able to make a save there, and then it's only 3-2, not 6-2, right? So, but I just felt the Detroit net minding and some of the defensive play wasn't very good. But the Jets earned it. I mean, they skated well. They, like you say, they came out ready to go in that first period, got out the 3-0 lead on the road. That's very impressive. Hard for another team to come back, even at home, being down 3-0. So, and then with the game in Columbus, it was kind of the same thing. Columbus is a good team. They had some chances. They pushed back, and I think they had it close. I think it was 3-2 going into the third period, or 2-2 going into the third period, and the Jets scored their three goals or 4 goals in the third period to pull away. But that's really sad on that. I just gotta say on that Columbus side, like I know that the NHL has provided them with some cap relief because of the situation with Johnny Gaudreau's contract and now his passing, but that team, I mean, if you just imagine Johnny Gaudreau being on that team with Sean Monahan, Zach Werenski, I mean, and also they have injured their captain, one of their best players, Jenner, is injured.
Jenner.
Right? Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, Columbus, what is versus what was or what could be versus what is. There's a big separation there, and one of it's injuries, another is just a horrific accident that you lose one of your very best players. It's hard. I'm shocked that Columbus even has a like above 500 record year to date, which is amazing. That's a testament to them. But yeah,
are you surprised how easy the Jets break their opponent's will? Because it seemed to be a couple times this week, like against Detroit and Columbus in particular, where the Jets would take it to a level where their opposition just could not match it,
Yeah.
and in essence broke their will. Are you surprised that with the sustained pace and the speed that the Jets are playing at this year?
Yes. Yeah, but I don't know. Like I've been trying to figure out too, because I mean, I had several people asking me, and even my wife. I mean, my wife likes hockey, but she doesn't know really what's going on. And she goes, "Why are the Jets so much better this year than last year? Have they made some big changes? Did they bring in a bunch of new players?" And I said, "Well, actually not. In fact, they lost some pretty good players year over year because of a free agency." She goes, "Oh, is it the same coach?" I said, "Well, their existing coach, he retired, but the assistant coach continued on with roughly the same system, but they've brought in new coaches for power play and penalty killing, which are two things the Jets had a hard time with last year, and they've turned that around, and they're the very best in the league on penalty or power play, and one of the best in the league on penalty kill." But I said it's not. And then I was trying to, and then I'm thinking after my wife asked me this, because I was thinking and sitting down thinking, like maybe, and this is something we don't think about, maybe there's some real uh, positive influence to a team that comes from not making a lot of changes and continuing with the same structure and with the same players. Like these guys have played together for a number of years and they've bought into the system, buying into a system. Yes, Arneal is a new coach, but he hasn't really changed that much. It's all about putting pressure. And when you lose the puck, going to get it again. And the Jets have a team that could do that because they're all very good skaters. They're big. They can do that.
Sorry to cut
So
you off, but the prime example to me is the Perfetti empty net goal. The Jets do a great job yesterday of pressuring Tampa Bay forward. He gives up the puck.
yeah,
There's an outlet pass from whoever makes that defensive play to Cole Perfetti. Boom, pucks in the back of the net in transition. Empty net goal, but the concept is the same. No matter what.
yeah, yeah. And
In that regard,
yeah,
and
but to answer your question, but just to finish my point, it's like
yeah,
maybe there is something that it's something it's hard to quantify. You can't say, oh, they added these three guys, that's had a huge impact on the power play because they're all power play guys and they've all scored 15 points through the first 11 games of the season or whatever. Then you could say, okay, I can see the direct correlation between adding three guys and seeing the power play get better. And now this all works. But the power play's better, the penalty kill's better. It's roughly the same guys. In fact, even not the same guys as last year. There's less guys than what they had last year. It's the system. It's the team buying in. It's maybe the commonality, the familiarity of the team with the system. Scott Arneal, I know some people say, well, he's not the same coach. He has to do something with it. Maybe his way of communicating is a little bit easier going than Rick Bowness. Rick Bowness is a good communicator, but he can get very fiery at times. So maybe Scott Arneal, he's just a little bit more because he's a former player, just like Rick Bowness, but he's a little bit younger. Maybe he can relate. But I don't know what it is. There's some X factor there. I can't figure it out. But I think there's other factors which we haven't dealt with. Out of the first 12 games, only 2 games have been played against. No, sorry, 3 games have been played against playoff teams from last year: Edmonton, Tampa Bay, and the Leafs. They lost to the Leafs and they beat Tampa Bay and Edmonton. All the other teams did not make the playoffs last year. So I think strength of schedule may have something to do with it, may not, but it may have something to do with it. It may just be luck. It may be just things are going their way. They're not injured or they're not suffering injuries. Everything seems to be going right. I would argue Hellebuck hasn't been great the last few games. He's been very but the Jets have scored more than 6 goals the last 4 games. So, or sorry, the 3 of the last 4. So that's helped them win. But he wasn't great against the Leafs. He wasn't great last night. He was average in Detroit. He wasn't great. And then he didn't play against Columbus. That was Comrie. So I don't know. It's strange. I would just tell you it's hard to figure out why. It's probably a combination of all those things, but and just maybe luck. It's just, yeah.
Can I bring something up that I think is interesting?
What's that?
I also think it has to do with the large improvement on the power play. Um, right? Because we said, how much did we say at the end of last year? How many points Jets have in the standings if their power play was 5 or 6 places better than where it ended up yesterday or last year? If their penalty kill was 5 or 6 places better than last year, they're
Yeah.
probably a first place team in the Central Division. That doesn't guarantee that their playoff fate is any different, but I
Right.
think there's something to be said for improved special teams, improved 5-on-5 commitment, and improved 4 lines in 3D scoring. And Dylan Sambert has 3 goals. Didn't see that coming. Career
No.
high 12 games in. Jets are getting great, you know, offense from their defense, which is something that they didn't get a lot of last year. Cohen Miller, Josh Morrissey constantly putting pucks toward the net. It's I also have to wonder how much that playoff loss really allowed some of these players to have a self-reflection moment where, quite honestly, it came to an inflection point about where do they want this team to go. They are sick of the narrative of this is a great regular season team, but they cannot get it done in the playoffs. Tom is probably sick of hearing, I'm a great offensive player, but I need to work on my defensive side of the game. Mark Shafley, same deal. Gabriel Velarde, same deal. We're also talking about a Jet power play that's at the top of the league. And Gabriel Velarde doesn't have a power play role. That's just amazing to me. Um, Granted, we're 12 games in and we've won 11 of them. Hey, they ain't taking 22 points from the Jets' point bank come
Nope.
April, and we're struggling or scrambling for those last couple playoff spots, maybe even first in the conference.
Yeah.
Hey, they got it done. There is going to be a rough stretch, but this team is banked enough that they can afford themselves one. It's not
Sure.
like they're 7-8 and a 6 game losing streak is going to send them into next year territory by American Thanksgiving. The Winnipeg Jets, by playing 500 hockey the rest of the way, will be a playoff team. But
Yep.
I'll tell you this, they will play better than 500 hockey and they will make the playoffs. And it's time for the Winnipeg Jets to start pushing their chips in the middle, making the necessary upgrades at the deadline to go win a Stanley Cup. And yes, that means going to get a defense partner for Josh Morrissey that you will not get pushed around in. Whoever that top end defenseman is that's available. I have talked to multiple people and they seem to think that Ivan Provorov, former Brandon Wheating, now with the Columbus Blue Jackets, fits the bill. Player like that, top ND, top 4D, get him in lineup to play with Josh Morrissey, get yourself a little bit bigger on the back end so you don't get pushed around. The Winnipeg Jets made the conference final in 2018 with the biggest decor in the Western Conference with Jacob Trouba, Josh Morrissey, Dustin Byfuglien,
Ben
Joe
Sherratt.
Morrow, Ben Sherratt, among others. What is the common prevailing fact about those players? Size. Big, mean, nasty, disrupting things in front of their own net. It is time to push your chips in the middle. This team is almost certainly going to look different with the contracts that they have coming off the books and potential free agents this year. The time is now, Red. Push those chips in the middle. Work between now and the deadline to get this team over the top. And hey, it might even mean getting a backup goalie that might be better than Eric Comrie. I'm not saying that Eric Comrie can't handle it, but if Connor Hellebuyck goes down, I'm not sure Eric Comrie can carry the mail, and you have to think about every feasible scenario now that the Winnipeg Jets are basically, for all intents and purposes, a playoff team unless they have a real catastrophic finish to the season.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they're thinking about it, but anything can happen between now and when is the trade deadline? Early March, I think, something like
March,
that.
early March, yeah.
Yeah. So anything can happen, but I mean, I don't think they're going to trade for a goalie unless they lose a goalie, right? Like now, Why would you trade to upgrade to upgrade Comrie? He's 3-0. Like, and the team is 11-1 with the team they have. Now, I granted, maybe at the trade deadline they add a large defenseman or they add a second line center with size akin to a Sean Monahan, right? They can bring in, but this is always the question: is that if you bring a guy in, is he going to fit in? These guys fit in. Like right now, they're playing. They are the best team in the league. Now, they're going to have injuries, whatever. You may have to make the trade because you've got injuries and you lose players. You could lose Nemestikov, and then who's going to play second line center, right? But I'm just saying, like, you're 11-1. I don't think they're panicking about what they're going to need come the trade deadline.
No, but I think you can have those discussions a lot easier now.
They do. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they talk about what do we like about our team, what's better, whatever. But I agree with you. Actually, I had this discussion with somebody too, and I said, they said, "Oh, Rick, the Jets are 11-1." I said, "Yeah, but it's a little bit of a mirage because only 11-1. So was that 13 games? No, they played 12 games. Well, only 9 of the 12 teams were playoff teams last year. So they're kind of they haven't really had a great test like some other teams." I mean, we could talk about, the rankings of the NHL, which has maybe impacted the Jets, but other teams have maybe had a harder schedule, playing a lot more playoff teams from last year than the Jets. But this individual responded to me, and it's a good point, and I think you mentioned it too, is that, listen, they're winning the games that they should win. So what happens if the Jets had gone 6-6 up until now? You'd be all upset. Well, they lost 5 games to
yeah, it would be so that whole.
So the other side is, you know what? To your point, they're winning the games they should win. They've won 2 out of 3 against playoff teams from last year. So they're showing pretty good. And to your point, they haven't had injuries. So they should be winning with a lineup like this, which is completely clean and completely healthy. But you're right. There's always stuff that happens. 82 games is a long time. And 6 months of a season or 7 months, whatever it ends up being, there's ups and downs, ebbs and flows. The Jets are at home for almost the entire month of January, or the first 3 weeks of January. They play 8 home games in a row in January. And then they go 2 on the road and then play another 2 at home. So I think, 10 out of 14 games in January are at home. So right now on the road, they're playing a lot of games on the road. At the beginning of the season, they play a lot at home in the middle, and then they play a lot on the road in March and then into April. So let them bank the points. Let them win what they should win, and that's okay. But I agree with you. I still would like more size. I'm not sure where, if it's on, the defense or if it's second line center. That second line is playing amazing. I mean, watching a Nemestikov, Ehlers, and Perfetti create there and so on. But easier to do now in October, November than it is in April, May in the playoffs or in the first round, where you get cranked every time and the refs let a lot of stuff go. Can those guys still be effective and skate that well and be that offensively minded with a playoff sort of situation at hand? That I'm not sure of. When I look at last year, the Jets struggled. Perfetti didn't even play in the playoffs because I think they thought he's just so small. He's going to get knocked around and he's not going to even be able to be effective. After scoring 40 points in the regular season, he was a healthy scratch for the 5 games in the playoffs against the Avalanche. So I don't know.
Anyway. It's interesting, right? Because that's just the way it goes.
Yeah,
we've talked way too long about the Winnipeg Jets, almost an hour about 1 week of Jets hockey.
Doesn't matter. But I wanted to mention one more thing. If you're going to change the subject and go to the rest of the NHL, which kind of leads me in, we're talking about their schedule and whatever else. Explain to me, I'm on the TSN website and I'm looking at the NHL power rankings. The Jets are number 1 in the league in the power rankings after last week or the week before last week. And they get pulled out. They go 3-0 from last week to this week. And they move from first to second in the power rankings. Like, they're number 1 in goals for. They're number 1 in wins. They're number 1 in goals against. They're number 1 in goal differential. They're number 1 in goals scored. their power play is the best in the league. Their penalty, like what's going? How can you be number one, lose 3 or win 3 games, and move to number 2? And you know what it tells me is that there is something to be said with strength of schedule, because what the article indicates is that the Hurricanes, what is it? They own the best expected goal differential in the league, which tells me expected goal differential must be when you're playing a weaker team, you'd expect a larger goal differential. And when you're playing a stronger team, you'd expect a thinner goal differential. And I guess they are winning a lot of games by more goals against very good teams relative to the Jets. The Jets are winning games against teams that are weaker, but they're not winning to the same expected goal differential, which must be why the Hurricanes are slightly ahead of the Jets in terms of the NHL power rankings. But it makes no sense to me, because you look at the goal differential, the Jets are 2.42, Hurricanes are 1.6. Like they have 2 losses, the Jets have 1. Now they only played 10 games, the Jets have played 12. Okay, fine. But whatever. It just, I don't know. It's again this thing, and maybe it's just me being from Winnipeg. It's like the Jets get no respect. No respect. Why? Because we're the smallest market in the league. There you go. That's my vent.
Yeah.
But anyway, what else do you want to talk about in the league? What else are we going to talk about?
I did want to talk about the standings a little bit.
Okay.
Just talk about some stories that happened in the league this week. Hang on a second here. The Florida Panthers, just do weekly standings update. Florida Panthers leading the Atlantic with a 9-3-1 record. The New York Rangers leading the Metropolitan at this point in time with an 8-2-1 record. That is 1 point better than Rich Carolina Hurricanes that he just mentioned.
Yeah.
The Winnipeg Jets are up 4 points in the Central on the Minnesota Wild. The Wild are 8-1-2. The Jets are 11-1. Wild have a game in hand on the Jets. The Dallas Stars are 7-4 after dropping their last 2 games in Finland. The interesting part about Dallas's sort of run, they're 5-1 at home and 2-3 out. Which is interesting. Vegas Golden Knights lead they lead the Pacific at 8-3-1. LA, Vancouver close behind. Edmonton, Calgary, etc., Kraken, but that's, and then the Sharks. It's really quite interesting. Whoops, I'm trying to find my screen here where our broadcast is. There it is. But what, to me, it's that we have not seen separation in the standings as of yet. Everybody's so close together. What do you make of that?
Well, there's maybe more parity, I guess. I don't know. Some teams got off hot and then have cooled off, and other teams that were starting cool have gotten warmer. I guess the exception would be the Jets. I mean, the Minnesota Wild have just really been a surprise. They play a defensive style and just play that Bruins kind of hockey style. And I think their head coach is the former Bruins head coach, right?
The Wild?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
John something, or
John Hines. He was in New Jersey.
Or New Jersey, okay. But anyway, Minnesota is just playing like defensively very well. Like they've only let 28 goals against in 11 games, which is that's like less than that's like 2.5 goals a game allowed. Like they've played very, very well, and they deserve to be there in that spot, in that second spot behind the Jets. But yeah, I don't know. It's still early. Look at, it's funny to me. You got Nashville and Colorado at the bottom of the Central, and
it's almost like everything's backwards.
I know. And St. Louis, Colorado and Nashville are not in playoff positions right now, and we expected them to be in playoff positions. We didn't expect, maybe not St. Louis, but for sure Colorado and Nashville. We picked Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado, and Nashville to be the 4 teams from the Central that made the playoffs, and the 2 of them are in second last and last place, which is just unbelievable. But it's 11 games in, 12 games in. Like, look at what I'm just looking here. Nashville, they're 4-6-1, so they're 2-3 games below 500. You know what? They win 6 in a row. It changes everything, right? They can leapfrog 4 or 5 teams at the beginning of the season now, where there can be a little bit of swing, right? But the longer the season goes, the harder it is to make that swing, because there's so many teams that, or all the other teams have put all the points in the bank already, right? So I don't know. I just think it shows parity. It shows things that you predict, like things like Nashville adding those players. That means nothing, right? It's they can add all these superstars, but if they don't have, like if they don't gel, there you go. Vegas, LA, and Vancouver are in the 3 playoff positions in the Pacific. That's what I thought too. New York, Carolina, Washington. Washington to me is a big surprise. That's another one. Like Ovechkin, I just figured that team is just going to be trying to get Ovechkin to get, the goal scoring title away from Wayne Gretzky. They brought in a Dubois. Dubois hasn't scored much, but yet they're still winning with the guys that they have. Like, it's just amazing. Now, they played a lot of games at home. I think they've played 7 of their first 11 at home. So that's really helped them. They're going to have to go on the road eventually and see what they're made of. But I really expected New Jersey to be higher in the standings right now, but it's still early. So then what do we got in the Atlantic? Okay, Florida, Tampa Bay, and Toronto, and then the Bruins in 4th place. Exactly what you and I thought. So, but
some is right, some is wrong. Some will have to be determined over 82 games. Is there a team? Is there a team that's disappointed you so far?
Disappointed. I thought the Senators would be better, but they've been so inconsistent. Some games they look like world beaters, and other games they just look meh. They play really good in Ottawa. They don't play so good on the road. I think they've won 5 out of 6 at home, but lost 4 out of 5 on the road. So they're just middling around 500, which is exactly what their record is. That surprised me. Who else surprises me a little bit? Well, Minnesota surprises me because they're doing so well, but Colorado to me is just a big surprise. I don't know how they're going to turn it around with, the goalie that they have, unless they just plan to outscore their net minding problems. But there's really good news for Colorado. I don't know if you heard on the NHL wire, Nichushkin there, he's cleared, and he can practice with the Avalanche. It's a miracle. So
yeah, it'll be November 15th. Apparently he can return.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing is Tyler, what's his name? Tyler, where are you? Tyler Johnson, who was like I would argue a superstar for the Lightning for all those years and winning the Stanley Cup. He can't even sign a contract. He's out there floating as a free agent. He just signed a deal, league minimum, with the Bruins for 1 year. Incredible.
It's amazing how some guys can't get contracts after having success.
Yeah. And there's other guys that are they're still floating out there. I don't know if you like there's so many veteran guys that just haven't found spots. I don't think Wheeler has recovered from his injury, but I don't think he's signed by New York because he only signed a 1-year deal.
No, he isn't.
I think he's done. And then there's that defenseman that used to play for Calgary that came to Seattle and then the Leafs. Who's that guy? The old guy. You know what I'm talking about. He can't sign a deal. He wants to keep playing. Like, there are some.
Giordano,
right there. So there's another guy.
Like, he went to Toronto.
No, he didn't. He went to Toronto, but then he hasn't been re-signed. He's still a free agent. If you look at the number, I don't know if they have a list of like outstanding or remaining free agents. I don't know if there's a website somewhere that shows that. There probably is. But I just saw names, like there was an article and just kind of rattled them off. And I thought, wow, there's some guys here, some veteran players that they're, unless the team gets an injury and they're going to pull up. But so many teams, they want to go young. They don't want to go old, right? They want to go young. They want to bring a young player up. So
Yeah.
oh, look, and now we got feedback from a listener.
Yeah. So Rob, we're gonna open up calling. Actually, Rob, you know what?
He was just saying.
Actually,
no, I just want to say. Let me finish.
Hold on, Rob. We can test your shoot, we're right up against the quad. We'll open it up next week, Rob, for you to call in if you want to talk to us. Just remind me about that. As well. Rob is saying, who are you planning on getting a player from at this point in the season? I'm not saying the Jets need to go out and make the trade right now. I think they should start making lists, and as teams drop off, then they should be able to swoop in and make one of the first moves around the deadline preemptively, like 6 weeks before or 8 weeks before. Just really go after what they want.
Yeah, I would agree, and you have to believe they're doing that, Michael. You have to believe that. They're not going to announce it. Like Chevrolet's going to say, "Oh, we're looking to add guys." Of course, every team is looking to improve. They're making lists. That's why they have scouts going to see games, because they're looking at, okay, who's a potential UFA, or who's got 1 year left of a contract on a team that's not going to make the playoffs, that we can make an offer on it to bring that guy over on a contract, on a trade for a prospect or for like a draft pick. So I'm sure all teams are doing that. So I'm sure the Jets are too. But I agree. I would not be doing it now. Let's see how the season goes, and let's see how injuries happen and everything else. And then I agree with you too. I wouldn't wait till the trade deadline. If you're going to do it, they should do it exactly like they did with Sean Monahan. Bring in somebody early that he has a lot of time to amalgamate with the team and learn the system and get comfortable.
I still maintain the best deal that Chevy made was the one that nobody saw coming, and that was Paul Stastny. Paul Stastny was not on anybody's trade radar when that deal was made.
That is true.
So it's got to be somebody that they're not talking about, right? But we're not talking about. And I think if you can leverage somebody to have, a bit of a younger guy, but you can kind of keep for 2 or 3 years, it makes that asking price maybe a little bit more to stomach versus a rental, right? But there'll be a lot of time to discuss for that. Really quickly, because we are over time, how did the Jets do this week?
They play at home against, and I hate saying this, is the Utah Hockey Club.
It's European, Red. A lot of them are
called about it all year. Come on, you guys, come up with a name, please.
They'll be the Utah Yetis. Mark my words.
It'll be the Utah Mormons. That's what it'll be.
The Utah Yetis.
And you know what their logo will be? It'll be 2 young guys in white shirts with long black ties in front, carrying a Book of Mormon, and then at a door knocking. That's what anyway, I think the Jets are going to go 2-1. I think they're going to beat Utah. They're going to beat Colorado, and they're going to lose to Dallas. That's my call. How about you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they beat Utah tomorrow. Then I toss up against Colorado, and I toss up against Dallas. I think they beat Colorado, lose to Dallas, or vice versa. Connor Hellebuyck plays all 3 games this week.
You think, eh? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's just the way it's going to go. I was a little surprised they played him in Columbus. I thought they could have played him yesterday. But you're splitting hairs in that regard.
Yep.
Anyway, Rhett, I'll talk to you off screen for a minute like we always do.
Yep.
We'll say goodbye to the audience, and we'll see you next Monday about 5 p.m. Central, 6 o'clock Eastern. For Red Petty, there's the thumb up, the weekly thumb up. Do I get one for doing that? Not so far. Not so far. For Red Petty, I'm Mike Odell saying so long. Have a great week, everybody.